Hey everybody, it's Diana again, and I'm sitting here with retired OPP officer and Safety Ambassador to Diamond and Diamond, Mr. Cam Woolley, and of course our managing partner, Ms. Sandra Ziskind. Today we're discussing self-defense in your home.
It's a hot topic.
It's a very hot topic. It's all over the news. I feel like people are either completely on one side or on the other. As we know, there was recently a story where a home was broken into. The homeowner decided to defend him and his family by way of force. And from what I understand, the police, he was charged then after because he used a force that was not equal to or something of what the break and enter or the person, the thief, let's call him.
And to be clear, and Cam is going to go off on this one, and this is really his expertise.
We're just going to tame him a bit.
But I just want to be clear. So we're in Canada. The rules in Canada are very different than the rules in the United States. Florida in particular is one that comes to mind. So, and I'll let Cam go with it, but each state has their own rules about this particular thing, but Canada is not the U.S. So go ahead, Cam. I'll let you take it from there.
Let's talk about it.
The case we're talking about is a fellow was asleep in his apartment in a small town east of Toronto. A suspect broke in armed with a crossbow. The resident, whose little daughter just happened to not be at home at the time, defended himself. He used a knife, and the intruder was seriously injured. Police laid assault charged both, but the man that defended himself was charged. And the criminal code in Canada says you can use reasonable force to defend yourself. The problem is it's not defined. And in my 30 years as a police officer and another over 10 as a reporter, find that it's frequent that the police or prosecutors don't really want to make that call, and they just leave it to the courts. They want to let the courts decide. I remember a big boss I had used to say, charge them and let the cards fall where they may.
Right.
And that's really makes a kind of an argument that the criminals have more rights than law-abiding citizens in some ways, where the criminal, this case was a violent drug addict, he's going to get a free lawyer. The poor victim's going to have to, who has a job, is going to have to pay to defend himself. Now, what's interesting is the courts in cases of legitimate self-defense have ruled in favor of homeowners, and the courts have said that the response does not have to be measured. That's right out of the court's words. And they say that they discourage the courts from dissecting the assaults or the events in a microscopic way. Now, that's a lot different than when police use force. Police are under the same rules. It has to be reasonable, but the police have all these policies and legislation. So we've seen cops that don't get it right. We know that.
Right. Like if they fire their gun off, they have to really just give a diatribe of
well,
explanation
if police use force and somebody's injured, in Ontario and most other jurisdictions, there's an independent investigation, so they become subject of an investigation. But for the police, and this is one of the problems with these cases, is the coppers have been taught, it's been drilled into them, that the use of force, they have to follow a specific continuum and policies. So, did you try to disengage? Did you try verbal contact? Did you use an open-handed technique? Did you then go to a baton? Did you use your pepper spray before you used a firearm?
Yeah, but you can't expect that out of a civilian,
you can't. But the police officer's been trained to that, so they're thinking, well, someone's seriously hurt, so it must have been unreasonable.
Right.
And remember, too, that and a recent police chief from a small town, I thought, really messed up when a reporter said, well, doesn't look like there's much chance of a conviction here. The guy was defending himself, and the chief just sort of threw away, there was a throwaway line like, well, we don't worry about that. If there's evidence to lay the charge. So it depends on the quality of the investigation. Now, I'll tell you, and this is what I recommend to people, if you find yourself in a position where you need to defend yourself, think of yourself like a cop. And why people go, wait a minute, police are allowed to do that. Not really, it's the same. But if a police officer uses force on someone and they're injured, I was president of a branch of number 5 branch of the OPP Association, which is a union, for many years. And we tell our officers, if you're the subject of one of those investigations, you do two things. You shut up and lawyer up. Because, and Sandra, I know you encounter this frequently, is people, if they're involved in a stressful situation, have a very strong urge to unload, to tell
Correct.
people, might choose their words poorly. Some words have legal meaning.
Right.
I see people mix up all the time saying, oh, I was at work, I came home and I'd been robbed. Well, you can't be robbed if you're not there. It's a break and enter.
Yeah.
So if you use the wrong words, and then if there's a trial, those words can be turned against you. So the best thing to do is you'll be in shock. You maybe should go to the hospital. You want to remove yourself from it. Do not be beacon off to the neighbors, the press, texting, putting stuff on
Right. On
mean,
social media.
Because what you're going to want to do is discuss it with your lawyer. The police are going to tell you things like, we just need your side of the story for the report. Even if the officer's kind of on your side.
This isn't the case where you're defending yourself.
Yeah, you've defended yourself
Okay.
and somebody's been injured.
Okay.
The coppers are going to try and pressure you. Interestingly, they won't pressure a fellow copper very hard. It's
Right.
in the identical situation. But you are not required to make a statement. In a motor vehicle collision you are, but you're not here.
Because now it's a criminal thing,
now
right?
you may not be a suspect. You might be a witness.
Right.
But that can change it in a
In a
moment.
second.
And there are politics at play, especially if a firearm's been used, where there's political
Or
folks.
any weapon.
Yeah, any
Really,
weapon,
any
but
weapon.
especially with a firearm,
100%.
where they're going to want to push for a charge. So even if the copper is on your side, there might be somebody above he or she.
Yeah.
And we see that recently, the case of the hockey players and the sex assault,
Correct.
where a seasoned detective looked at it, took a hard look at it, and says, there's lots of stuff here, but felt that charges weren't appropriate. Eventually, when there was public pressure and
Right.
a big trial,
Right.
in the end, the judge concluded the same thing that the first cop did.
Right. So
So-
it's true. And what happens in terms of the law is that the court is supposed to look at the reasonable person of the same circumstance, what the reasonable person will do. So if it's a police officer, they'll look at a reasonable police officer with the same amount of training.
Aren't they held to a higher standard than police officers? in
But
domestic
they
situations?
are,
I think
but
so.
it's also what a reasonable, so a police officer and a lay person is not the same level, because the police officer is expected to know how to de-escalate a situation like this, how to react to a situation. So what they'll do is they'll look at the reasonable person. Did you have a reasonable fear that they were going to hurt you or hurt someone else? Did you have a reasonable fear that your life was in danger? All of these things will be looked at. And then the courts will look at the person who did the self-defense. For example, we've had cases in Canada where the person was like a trained martial arts expert, and a guy started the fight with the trained martial arts expert. The trained martial arts expert hit back or whatever, and the amount of damage that he did, the court said, is disproportionate. So they're saying that you were allowed to hit back, but not as much as
Only
you
in
did.
a martial arts studio.
Right, they're saying not as much as you did. And Cam is right. It's a very tricky line. And they're saying, well, if you had a certain level of training, you should know when to hold back.
Yeah.
And it's all could have, should have, would have. It's really hard. It's really hard to be an armchair quarterback when somebody breaks into your living room with a crossbow. I mean, I don't know how many of us will have the wherewithal to be reasonable and kind of be like, well, I stabbed you once. That should be enough. I'm good now. I'm good now.
Know how a reasonable person would react to something like that. Cam, you are obviously have training in those defenses. Sandra and I, if somebody were to break into our spaces, I would a crossbow. I'd probably throw the remote control at him or something, and that's the extent of what I could do. Like, I think if in a situation where you do have something to defend yourself with, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I just feel like
that's why places like Florida
also
that
how
are
did
very
he get
extreme.
so close to him if he had a crossbow? That's another thing that I'm trying to figure out. Anyway.
The whole so that's part of the problem.
Yeah.
So that right there is probably why they charged him. So we'll
look
get
at
back to
me.
that. Like Florida like many states have a thing. I think Texas
site or
and
something?
shoot on site. You can basically anybody that trespasses on your property, you can shoot, and there's no
I saw
repercussions.
recently kids were playing a game like Nicky Nine Door where you ring the bell and then you run off. There was a group of 8 kids. The homeowner opened the door because I guess he wasn't used to this game or he wasn't aware and shot one of the kids and the kid died.
11-year-old kid.
Yeah,
Yes.
you saw that, right? And I was just like, that's a little too much Florida.
Correct.
For me.
A little bit
too much
too
America
much.
for me.
Yeah. So in the States, those laws, and they're set out for that specific purpose, because there is a proposition in the law, specifically in the US, but definitely in Canada as well. You have a reasonable right to protect your property. It's in the charter. You have a reasonable right to protect your property as well. So you can protect your property within reason. And again, in Canada, what that means is different. So now going back to what you said, he stabbed him with a knife.
Right.
He had a crossbow.
Yeah, okay, point a crossbow at me.
Right. So this is what the police did. So the police come into a situation like this, and these are seasoned police officers, and we're assuming, they're acting in good faith and all of that, and they're coming in and they're saying, okay, wait. You got close enough to stab him. This is not like shooting him from across the room. You got close enough to stab him. At that point, when you stabbed him, did you still have that reasonable fear of being killed?
Right. And I guess where they stabbed him, like if they stabbed him in the back.
Right. So this is what the police are doing. So the police are coming into a situation like this. They're reenacting it. They're trying to figure it out the best they can, piece it together without a video telling them exactly what happened. Right. And they're saying, okay, hold on a second. You're in this position. He's in this position. What fear did you fear at that time?
Right.
So if they feel like maybe the crossbow wasn't pointed at the person, maybe he was just holding it on the side. I don't know. Like I'm speculating.
Well, that's the problem. We don't have the facts. So if he dropped the crossbow, or he was stabbed and stopped, and then the guy just kept stabbing.
Right.
So he may have said said things like that to the police. We don't know. So that's the problem.
I watch a lot of those like murdery true crime shows, and they always go down to like where the shot was, if they're shot in the back, and then how many times they were shot. Well, it wasn't a defensive shot. It was a shot.
And that is one of the keys too, that where some people have been claim self-defense, and then they shoot some guy that was breaking into their car in the back out in the street. There's no threat.
Right.
Yeah,
well, the guy's bad. He was going to take my car. I'm mad.
Right.
Well, no, you can't do that.
That's why you can't prejudge. You can't prejudge these situations, because the police officers on the scene in this particular case came in. They saw what they saw. Yep. Let's hope it wasn't a political charge. Let's hope that they were being a little bit more discerning than that. But it could have been. Right. It could have been, like you said, it could have been.
If there's any doubt, they often want to let the judge decide, which just isn't fair. And that
it isn't fair.
There's a proposal now by the Conservatives that would basically presume innocence where someone was defending themselves, unless there was evidence to the contrary, like you invite
like
the guy
a reverse
over and kill
almost.
him. And there's lots of self-defense cases that really aren't genuine, with the gangbanger saying, it was self-defense. Even in domestics, I've seen it claimed, where one partner kills the other and says, well, I was just defending myself.
So that's the problem. So this is where the problem therein lies, is that there is, especially with domestic violence, which we know is, first of all, the hardest thing to prosecute. It's domestic violence and rape are the two hardest crimes to, because in rape they say she consented, and in domestic violence they said I was defending myself every single time. Right. She attacked me, and I just pushed her off, and she hit a wall. And Cam is right, and women statistically die at the hands of their partners more often than any other type of death. Right. So Cam is right. That's why we don't have these set and fast rules, is because the court has to dissect it, look at it, and say, this 110-pound woman, this 250-pound man. Let's assume what you said is correct. Let's assume she jumped on you because she was jealous. It's always because they were jealous.
Yeah, always.
Whatever.
Not that jealous, guys.
Yeah, calm down.
Go ahead.
You're not that great. So she climbed on top of him. He pushed her off, or he was restraining her, and she died in the process, or something to that effect.
Yeah, okay.
So that's exactly why these places like Florida, like Texas, these sort of very strict things are problematic. Right. You want to make sure that there's some allowance in the court. And yes, unfortunately, sometimes people get caught in the crosshair when it's legit self-defense, and they have to spend $200,000 to $250,000 defending themselves in court because they take it the whole way.
Yeah.
But you hope
you're avoiding jail, I guess, right?
You hope that somewhere along the way, the prosecutors or the people look at the evidence objectively. That's the hope. That's their duty. The prosecutors are supposed to, just like the police, like everyone else, they're supposed to look at it objectively.
The police aren't trained that heavily in that. And there's some jurisdictions like British Columbia where charges need to be approved. So the police say, we want to charge this guy with assault when he assaulted an intruder, and then the Crown's going to go through it and then may not proceed. There's some
I think
states like that
maybe
too.
that's the proper way to do it then. Like,
Well,
just take
but the
down
police are
information
what
and-
they're taught about is use of force is all police stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's, in fairness, they're thinking, well, this person didn't follow police procedure.
Right.
Well, they're not a police person, and they know that,
that's
but
an
it's going to
excellent
be in the
point.
back of their head.
100%. And that's why they have grand juries
Well,
in the U.S.
Yeah.
To
The
decide
grand
if they're
juries.
gonna-
So grand juries are a system where they present the evidence to a jury. The only person that speaks is the prosecutor. The only person that speaks is the prosecutor. The prosecutor basically lays out their case to a jury, and the jury decides whether to proceed with charges. And that is that is a good, in these sort of circumstances,
Yeah.
is a good way to sort of weed out.
Yeah, right now it's just, no, if there's any, we're going to charge them.
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
let the cards fall where they may,
As a
kind of thing.
precaution, I
So
guess.
the only, I can't just tell you whether you should or shouldn't. There's so many factors into
Yeah.
what you should do.
Right.
I know what I plan to do.
Yeah.
Um,
Let me
Yeah,
guess.
that's gonna pass.
But the bottom line is, if you are forced to use force, if you find yourself in that position and someone's injured, shut up and lawyer up.
Yeah.
Well, this is correct, but also, always, obviously, if you can call 911, if you can get the police there as soon as
Well,
possible.
when seconds count, the police will be there in minutes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, this
That's
is
the
true
problem.
too.
And you get that argument, and it keeps being reinforced. I can think of a recent case in Orangeville where the guy was on hold, I think, for 15 or 16 minutes in a
Yes.
violent home invasion.
Yes,
Right.
yes, yes.
And
Nobody came.
well, he
Well, they
couldn't
came
get through to the
eventually,
911. So because you'll get that argument. Well, why did you? If you had time to unlock your gun cabinet
Right.
and
Yeah.
go get your shotgun, you should have just called 911.
Right.
Right.
That's a judgment call for you.
Right.
But it's how long is it going to take to get through and for them to dispatch a car? And depending where you live, is there even a car available?
Yeah,
And even
yeah,
in
yeah.
a place like Toronto, there isn't necessarily. There's lots of times when we hear ambulance and police are taking a while for even a high priority call.
Right.
So
It's
the
tough.
best thing is to harden your house in the first place.
Right.
Yes.
I guess
So they don't
security,
come in, but
yeah,
there are
alarm
other
systems.
cases where you may have to defend yourself just walking down the street. You might
Yeah.
be coming out of your office building or out of a restaurant, and someone pulls a gun and wants your
Right.
jewelry or your
Yeah,
wallet.
I think
Yeah.
the real issue with this thing is that it
It
was
was
his
in the
own
home.
Yes,
It was,
yes, yes.
He owned the home. It was his home. But like I think in the street, okay.
Yeah,
well,
it's-
It's a different
completely
situation.
just-
But
completely
Cam has a very good point, and it's a good thing to conclude on. You and I do this myself. I have a panic button on my alarm system and on my phone. So I don't even have to call 911. I have a panic button that means I'm in distress, and I just have to press one button,
Yeah.
and it says I'm in distress.
Yeah.
You put on your alarm. You keep your house well lit. You have a dog. That's always a deterrent
yeah.
for
It is.
home invaders.
Absolutely.
I don't know what your dogs
Not
are.
my dogs.
Little
Not my
teacups.
dogs. Not my dogs. But even the barking sometimes is a
yeah,
deterrent.
yeah.
Anything you can do to make your house. I have even that sort of, it's like a sticker you put on the windows, exposed windows. I have bars. There's all sorts of things you can do
Yeah.
to try. It's to
Preventative,
prevent
yeah.
as much as you can.
Yeah.
Because, if somebody breaks in, if you're lucky enough to be April Woolley and live with Cam, he
Yeah.
can probably do what he needs to
Good
do.
to go.
But for the rest of us,
Yeah.
we're going to be crying in a corner.
Yeah.
So the best thing to do is prevention and make sure that your house is
Yeah.
as safe as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, a huge number of break-ins aren't people. Police call it a break and enter, but often it's through an unlocked door. Front
Correct.
doors, or people leave the front doors unlocked. I have a friend. A lovely lady that got an expensive alarm system and never sets it because she's afraid her maid will mix it up.
Right.
And which I thought was
what's
quite
the
for the
point?
first
Yeah.
world
Yeah.
problems.
I literally
Yes,
just told
exactly.
I told my parents this just the other day. I'm like, when you guys are in bed, I need to make sure you're putting the alarm system on because I can't have that.
And
I
then so
can't
many
give you that
people are
story,
afraid
right?
because they're going to get charged. They're going to get in trouble for the cops if there's
Right.
false alarms. But
Right.
if you harden your house so that, which one of the things we've done at our place, if somebody tries to kick the door in,
Yes.
it's going to be a long time.
Yeah.
And we'll have a chance to take whatever steps might
Correct.
be escape.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
You know, it's not always that you have to try and confront them.
Yeah.
And if it's a group of 3 or 4 people, do you really want to take them all on, even if you
Right.
are a karate instructor?
usually the
and
case.
if they're
100%.
these young gangbangers, they got guns.
Yeah.
It's to delay. That's why I put the film on the window.
Yeah.
So you can't. It
So
takes
you
them
can,
15 minutes
Yeah.
to
Well, a
knock
lot of
the
them
window.
give up.
Yes.
A lot of them, once they, and that's all you're doing. When you harden your home and alarms and dogs, all these things, what you want to do is get them to go somewhere else.
It's a
Right.
deterrent.
Yeah.
And then some of these people are either drug addicts or mental health issues where
Right.
they won't deter.
Yeah.
And even if you punch them in the nose or throw the remote and hit them in the nose,
Yeah.
they're so high.
Yeah.
And that can happen too when, if I've seen it in police shootings where the person that's shot or they've used force on, I've used force on somebody that was high on drugs.
It's not fun.
And I'm a big guy, and I hit him really hard with a police baton multiple times, and he
stop.
couldn't
Yeah.
feel it.
Yeah.
I had to actually do a football tackle and and this was on Young Street.
It's scary.
I had to
It's
just
scary.
because I weighed more. I eventually
Right.
was able to. He was trying to choke a construction worker to death.
jeez.
Oh, God.
I was driving along, and I see this guy. He was nicely dressed with a golf shirt and Dockers, and he just walks up to a construction guy and starts trying to kill him
Yeah,
for
but
no reason.
You and your police
Yeah,
form fit are able to do that. I think a
Yeah, but
regular
it didn't work.
civilian wouldn't. Like,
No, but he's right. The point is deter
Yeah.
and delay.
Yeah.
Delay.
Because
So-
if you're shocked in the middle of the night, what are you going to do? Now
Right.
we have electronics at our place. If we have a lot of property, but if anybody comes in the property, we get it sounds like a doorbell. It goes doo doo. It's a radar system.
Yes, yes.
Right.
Oh, there's an
And
intruder.
I have what I do in my house when I'm home is I put stay on the alarm. So that allows you to move freely within the house.
Yeah.
And it's just for when people come in from outside the house.
Yeah. Right.
So like when the dogs and stuff are moving, the motion detection's moving. But the minute, like you said, somebody's gonna bang on the door
Yeah.
or knock down a window.
Right. Yeah.
And this is what these alarm companies do. You
Right.
call them in, a more reputable one, and you walk around and they see what windows are exposed, what doors are exposed, where your problems are, and they'll wire them up.
Yeah.
You really have to be preventative with these sort of things because you don't ever want to be in a situation where you have to get involved.
Yeah, and
Well,
there's a range of. I think a lot of alarm companies will offer people a range of a budget, like within your
Yeah,
budget,
sure.
to go from an extreme level of security to a basic level, but still something, at
Yeah.
least some camera system
But
or a trigger warning.
online now,
Yeah.
there's so many things,
Well,
right?
that's another
That's the
whole.
beauty
So many
part.
We'll just
options.
briefly touch on it. Physical hardening's the best. A company called Safety Screen out of Toronto makes it looks like screen, but you can't get through it. With
That's what I have, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
with
Yes.
a sledgehammer.
Yeah.
He also makes a product called rock glass. It just looks like normal glass. They can put it over your windows. Can't kick in a door or a window with the sledgehammer. But a lot of people are getting DIY alarm kits, little wireless sensors all hooked to the Wi-Fi. Very, very good.
Yeah, and it all
Excellent,
works.
except
Except.
well, here's the problem. A lot of the sort of career criminals now are buying jamming systems, and it's very easy to jam the Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
So I've seen this with the car thefts and break-ins, where I'm going to check my home security, and there it is, 8 o'clock at night, all good, and then it jumps to 8:20.
Oh God, all the videos I see
Where it's
online
gone.
it's on camera.
Where it just,
They're still
especially
doing it.
because it basically stops that.
Yeah.
And so you just look and there's nothing there, but then you look at the time, it stopped working for 20 minutes. So
Yeah, yeah.
hardwiring is best if you can.
Yeah.
I've done that at my place. The cameras
Same.
are hardwired
Yeah.
and the stuff's going to the cloud, because back in the day they just come in and grab the recorder and
Right.
smash it.
Yeah.
And
But
so-
these I've noticed these criminals nowadays, they're and these intruders have no chill, as I like to say,
Yep.
because they don't care.
No.
They can see the cameras, they don't care. But I think it's still a good measure to have to produce to the police in the event that they are able to catch these
Oh yeah,
people,
yeah.
right?
Well, the camera usually tells you what time the guy in the hoodie did it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's right. That's about it.
Anyway, I mean, as far as this particular topic is concerned, in terms of like your home safety and your defense mechanisms, again,
Think about it.
Yeah,
think about what you might
about-
do. How can you protect yourself? If force is not an option for you by maybe your size and
Yeah.
your mentality, that's okay.
Yeah.
Think of other what do I need to do to protect myself?
Right.
And we don't have a stand your ground law, and that's not always the smart thing to do. So
Yeah.
is there somewhere in your house that you
Right.
can escape to that's secure? Our previous house, we actually put a steel door
Like a
in one of
panic
the
room.
downstairs bedrooms, so that if you needed to, you can go in there.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. and
Right.
just wait
Yeah.
it out until
Yeah.
the police and authorities
Exactly.
get there. So, I mean, of course, we've discussed safety measures that you can do in advance, have alarm systems, dogs, call 911, have a phone by you at times. We know that not everybody has the capacity to defend themselves in that situation. Have an escape route, potentially, to help remove yourself from that situation. And if you do happen to defend yourself, as we've seen, it's up to the courts. And they are going to determine whether or not you will be charged.
Just don't sink yourself.
Yeah,
Make sure that you get legal counsel right away.
And as Cam suggested, get a lawyer, get somebody to help you proceed forward. And we know it's happening a little more often now in our cities. Just, again, take the safety precautions, everyone. Do what you can to protect your home and be safe.